As Daniel mentioned, I'm the co-founder and CEO of Tether, and we make bug reporting as easy as one click. Imagine trying to resolve an issue, and this is how you're getting feedback. It's dispersed across all channels, and more importantly, it lacks the proper context for you to take next steps. Whether that's visual context, like a screen recording or proper screenshot, or technical context, like knowing what's going on underneath the hood. We've talked with hundreds of companies, and we found this to be a pretty typical process for bug reporting and feedback internally. As you can see, it requires multiple pieces of software, many steps, and it's a huge time sink. Tether is software that solves all these problems. Tether is a widget installed on top of any website or web application that allows your users, your team, to take screenshots and screen recordings directly from that site. No need to jump between different applications or switch contexts. You can add voice, markup, and so that when you submit that feedback, you know it's going to be clear. Everything lives in one place, centralized on the Tether dashboard, where we store all that juicy technical data for you. And it cuts that typical 9-step process down to 2 steps, saving teams tons of time. My partner Dalton and I decided to work on Tether when we were scaling our software development agency here in New York. As we got more clients, more users, handling feedback from start to finish across these projects became a huge pain, and we built Tether to solve our own problem. Once we saw how effective it was, we knew there was a bigger opportunity here. And so we joined Pioneer in June, and that's when we went full time with Tether. And since then, we're growing about 20% month over month for our MRR, about 72% month over month for our MAUs. And we've had the opportunity to work with some really fantastic companies. And we're already building kind of a devout following of fans that really love us because we're solving burning problems for them. We've seen teams switch from traditional tool Loom and get rid of manual processes like Google Sheets. And the positive feedback so far has been invigorating. We see bug reporting and feedback as our first step towards a platform that helps our users build better products that are grounded in feedback rather just than in intuition. And we're currently closing out a pre-seed round. We have most of it committed already. And so if there's any investors like to chat, please let me know. And if anyone's out there that wants to try Tether, you can go to our site and kick off a free 2-week trial. Thanks.
All right, great presentation, Dan. Let's kick it off with a question about differentiation. So there are a few companies out there that do bug reporting as well. How are you doing things differently?
Well, I think most of the companies that do it currently are either pretty outdated. There hasn't been a new entrant in a while, so they lack the kind of modern UI and UX that we accommodate. Additionally, the Loom style recording, which we found to be a really good way to deliver high context feedback, is something that's unique to us. And additionally, there's no Chrome extension required. You can do it without authentication, so it's super easy access. Has the ability to be used both internally and externally.
Got it. And what's your vision for Tethered over the next 5 years? How does the product evolve?
Yeah, so I touched on this a little bit in there, but we have really big plans. Our goal has always kind of been to be a feedback company. So we want to help people build better products that are grounded in feedback and not so much intuition or whatever the CEO thinks is a good idea or a new shiny thing to chase. And so that's feedback internally, making sure you get the most from your team, and then also externally being really tied into the end user's voice. And so we think there's a lot of things we can do in that space to help make sure that you're launching the right features, being at the center of this loop of build, launch, get feedback, iterate. We think we can provide a lot of value there.
Got it. And can you kind of walk me through the roadmap here? Because it sounds like you're starting with, this centralized place to do bug reporting, making it easy for both external users and internal users to kind of get around kind of the same interface. What's the next step for you, and how does that help you build towards this vision 5 years from now?
Yeah, it's a great question. We spent a lot of time working on this internal use case first, because that's what we felt at our agency. It was mostly internal or with clients, not really end user facing. And just recently, in the past, 8 weeks, we launched our first end user widget. And so the next kind of step is kind of polishing that experience. We have some users that are already hooked up and using it. And so it's getting feedback for them, polishing it up a little bit more. And then additionally, getting further ingrained into the end user kind of applications that we're in. So being smarter about the feedback that we're on, not just being a widget that's always there, but allowing us to be intelligently, thrown to specific users and just making sure that we can help the people using us make intelligent decisions and be able to talk to their users in an effective way.
So you've gotten great feedback from users so far. I took a look at G2 and saw that you're one of the top rated options for this category. What have you learned from these early conversations with users?
That's a good question. We learned a lot about what not to build, and that kind of has guided us to what to build. We've learned that agency owners really love the fact that this gives their clients a good experience. It upgrades the client experience very drastically. So not only do they love the time saved internally, but now they kind of have this almost red carpet experience, which is what one of our agencies called it, that a red carpet experience for clients, because it processes it, makes it into a process. And so that was big. One thing that was really big for us was that when we were just doing the internal feedback, everybody would ask us like, "Oh, this is cool and this is helpful," and like we're loving it internally, but can we use it for end users? Can we use it for end users? And the answer was always like, "Okay, no, not quite yet, not yet," because we really wanted to nail that experience first, and we didn't want to go too wide quickly, which I think is something that startups always have to be wary of. So then eventually, after nailing that internal process, that external feedback got pulled out of us, and that was probably the biggest learning so far.
Nice. All right, one last question from me. It sounds like you guys started working on this. Like the idea came out of when you and Dalton worked together on the agency. So understandable that a lot of these like early clients, come from the same cloth. How do you think about your go-to-market here? Like, what does it look like, I guess, for the first 10 customers and then for the next 100 and so on and so forth?
Yeah. So we already have 13 teams paying up and using the platform. And so, like you said, those initial ones were people in our connections, people that we knew we could talk to, agencies that we knew quite well. And we're able to get really good distribution through them. The agency world is pretty tight knit. And so once people see that, hey, this has been validated by 5 other agencies in the city, they know it's a good product. But additionally, kind of go to market going further, we just launched a freemium plan, which allows SaaS companies to put our end user widget on their site. Some features are locked down, but we think that will be a good kind of growth hack for us, because every widget that is on a site is kind of like a billboard for us. There's a powered by Tether, and people get to interact with that. So we think that's another kind of cyclical loop that we could have in the background on top of all this kind of agency distribution that we'll have.
That makes sense. Dan and Dalton, thank you very much.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Continued success. Next up,